A commoner's crown, Sarah Peterson had always lived life by the book: hard work, discipline, and no room for distractions. A marketing associate in bustling New York City, she spent years climbing the corporate ladder, believing that success would bring her happiness. But when she was passed over for a well-deserved promotion, her best friend Beth convinced her to take a much-needed escape. That's how Sarah found herself in the snow-laden fairy tale town of Caldenia, a place that seemed lifted from the pages of a storybook. As Sarah wandered the charming cobblestone streets, she collided, quite literally, into a handsome local named Alex. With warm hazel eyes and an easy smile, Alex offered to show her around, revealing the hidden gems of Caldenia: a quiet bookshop tucked between alleyways, a breathtaking scenic overlook, and a cozy cafe where they shared steaming cups of hot cocoa. The more time they spent together, the more Sarah felt something she hadn't in years: free. But her enchanting escape shattered when she attended the town's grand winter festival at the palace and overheard whispers of Prince Alexander's presence. The realization hit her like a wave: Alex wasn't just a charming local, he was the heir to the throne of Caldenia. Hurt and betrayed, Sarah confronted him, and Alex admitted he had kept the truth hidden, wanting her to see him for who he was, not his title. Though his explanation was earnest, Sarah struggled to process it. Could their connection be real when built on a half-truth? As she debated her place in his world, Queen Isabella summoned Sarah for a private meeting. In a composed yet firm tone, the Queen made it clear: Sarah was not suitable for a prince. Royal life came with expectations, and a commoner, no matter how kind or intelligent, could never truly fit in. Already insecure about the whirlwind romance, Sarah took the Queen's words to heart and began pulling away. The media frenzy only made things worse. Paparazzi followed her every move, twisting her story into scandalous headlines. The royal council pressured Alex to focus on his impending coronation and leave behind distractions. Yet, against the odds, he remained steadfast. Refusing to let politics dictate his heart, he invited Sarah to a secluded part of the palace grounds, sharing stories of his childhood and his dreams for the kingdom. For the first time, Sarah saw the weight of his responsibilities and the depth of his love. He wasn't just a prince, he was a man willing to fight for her. At a grand royal ball, Sarah took a bold step and approached Queen Isabella. Speaking from the heart, she expressed her love for Alex and her willingness to embrace the difficulties of royal life. Though skeptical, the Queen couldn't ignore Sarah's sincerity and strength. Alex took matters into his own hands, addressing the royal council and the public. He declared that love did not weaken a leader, it strengthened him. His impassioned speech resonated, shifting public perception. With the town's support behind him, even Queen Isabella relented, acknowledging that Sarah's courage and resilience made her worthy of the throne. On a snowy evening in the palace gardens, Alex publicly proposed, his voice unwavering as he asked Sarah to stand by his side. Amidst twinkling lights and the cheers of Caldenia's people, she said yes. Their love had weathered every trial, proving itself unshakable. As Alex's coronation day arrived, Sarah stood beside him, not as an outsider, but as his equal. The commoner who had stumbled into a prince's world had found not only love, but a place where she truly belonged. A life on repeat. The fluorescent lights overhead hummed softly, casting a sterile glow over the rows of cubicles stretching across the office floor. Sarah Peterson sat at her desk, her fingers poised over the keyboard, yet she hadn't typed a single word in the last 5 minutes. Instead, her gaze drifted to the towering skyline beyond the window, the glass and steel giants of New York City standing tall against the dusky sky. The streets below bustled with life, taxis honking, pedestrians weaving through the sidewalks, all moving with a sense of purpose. She used to feel that way too. With a sigh, Sarah shook off the thought and turned back to her computer screen. The email waiting for her was from her boss, confirming what she already suspected: she hadn't gotten the promotion. The position she had spent months working toward, staying late at the office, sacrificing weekends, had gone to someone else. Again. Sarah? She blinked, snapping out of her daze as her best friend and coworker, Beth, appeared beside her desk. Beth's expression was knowing, her arms crossed as she leaned against the cubicle wall. "You saw the email," Beth said. It wasn't a question. Sarah forced a tight smile. "Yeah. It's fine." Beth scoffed. "No, it's not. You deserved that promotion." "Apparently not." Sarah shrugged, trying to mask the disappointment weighing on her chest. "Maybe I just wasn't the right fit. Or maybe this job is sucking the life out of you," Beth countered, pulling up a chair. "Come on, Sarah. You've been running yourself into the ground for what? A title? A slightly bigger paycheck?" Sarah exhaled, rubbing her temples. "I don't know. I guess I thought if I worked hard enough, I'd get somewhere. But now, I just feel stuck." Beth studied her for a moment before a mischievous glint lit up her eyes. "Then maybe it's time to get unstuck." Sarah frowned. "What are you talking about?" Beth grinned and pulled her phone from her pocket, tapping the screen a few times before turning it towards Sarah. A web page flashed across the screen, an ad for a winter getaway in a charming European town. The photos showcased snow-dusted streets, twinkling lights, and a castle-like palace in the background. "Caldenia," Beth said excitedly. "I just booked us a trip. You and me, 1 week in a magical, fairy tale town. No emails, no deadlines, just fresh air and adventure." Sarah's eyes widened. "Wait, you what?" "You need this, Sarah. Trust me." 1 week away from all of this, Beth gestured to the office around them, "might be exactly what you need to remember what it's like to actually live again." Sarah hesitated, her mind racing with excuses, her responsibilities, her workload, her endless to-do list. But deep down, beneath the exhaustion and disappointment, a small flicker of longing stirred. Maybe Beth was right. Maybe she did need a change. Maybe she needed Caldenia. A leap into the unknown. The sound of clinking glasses and low chatter filled the cozy Manhattan cafe where Sarah and Beth sat, their untouched lattes slowly cooling on the table between them. Outside, the city pulsed with its usual energy, cabs whizzing past, pedestrians bundled in winter coats rushing to their destinations. But inside, Sarah felt stuck in place, trapped in a loop of exhaustion and self-doubt. "I still can't believe you just booked a trip without asking me," Sarah muttered, stirring her coffee absent-mindedly. Beth smirked. "I knew if I asked, you'd say no." Sarah exhaled, leaning back against the booth. "Beth, I can't just drop everything and fly to some random European town." Beth arched an eyebrow. "Why not?" "Because I have responsibilities." Beth scoffed. "Like what?" "A job that doesn't appreciate you? A boss who barely notices you?" "Come on, Sarah. When was the last time you did something just for you?" Sarah opened her mouth to respond but hesitated. The truth was, she couldn't remember. Beth leaned forward, her voice softer now. "Look, know you, and I know when you're burning out. You've been running on fumes for months, and for what? Another promotion that got snatched away? She sighed. You used to dream about traveling. About seeing places that weren't just different subway stops on your commute. What happened to that girl? Sarah swallowed hard, her fingers tightening around her coffee cup. She got too busy trying to prove herself, she admitted quietly. Beth reached across the table, squeezing Sarah's hand. Then maybe it's time she stopped trying and just lived a little. Sarah glanced at Beth's phone, where the images of Caldenia glowed invitingly, a town straight out of a fairy tale, its cobblestone streets dusted with snow, lights twinkling like stars against the night sky. It looked peaceful. Dreamy. Like a world away from here. She took a deep breath. Caldenia, huh? Beth's grin widened. 1 week. No work emails, no responsibilities. Just you, me, and an adventure. Say yes. Sarah hesitated for only a second before she finally let out a small, breathless laugh. Okay. Beth gasped. Wait, really? Sarah nodded, a strange but exhilarating warmth spreading in her chest. Yeah. Let's do it. Beth let out an excited squeal, grabbing Sarah's hands. Oh my God, this is going to be amazing. As Beth launched into plans about what they'd do first, Sarah gazed out the window, watching the busy New York streets go on as if nothing had changed. But something had changed, something deep inside her. For the first time in years, she wasn't just watching life go by. She was about to live it. A royal misunderstanding. The crisp winter air nipped at Sarah's cheeks as she strolled through Caldenia's snow-dusted streets, the scent of roasted chestnuts and fresh pastries wafting from nearby market stalls. The town was straight out of a storybook, charming cottages with ivy-covered walls, warm golden lights glowing from windows, and cobblestone streets that curved through the bustling town square. She couldn't believe Beth had convinced her to come here. And even more surprising, she was actually enjoying it. Okay, this is adorable, Sarah muttered to herself, pausing in front of a small wooden cart selling handmade scarves. As she reached for a deep blue one, another hand brushed against hers. Oh, sorry, she said, pulling back. No, please, go ahead, a smooth, amused voice replied. Sarah looked up and found herself staring into the warm hazel eyes of a ridiculously handsome man. He had tousled dark brown hair, a strong jawline, and a teasing smile playing on his lips. He was dressed in a tailored coat and scarf, looking effortlessly stylish, but there was something unpolished about him, like he wasn't as put together as he was supposed to be. She quickly dropped her gaze to the scarf and laughed awkwardly. Didn't mean to steal your fashion choice. He smirked. I have to admit, it's a fine selection. Though, I'm not sure blue is my color. Sarah tilted her head, pretending to examine him. No, I think you're more of an arrogant but charming gray. His eyebrows shot up, then he let out a laugh. Arrogant but charming? That's a bold assessment for someone who just met me. I have a gift, she said, grinning. Well then, he said, crossing his arms, since you seem to know everything, let me guess, you're not from here. Sarah sighed dramatically. Was it the giant tourist map I dropped 5 minutes ago that gave it away? That was a strong clue. He chuckled, pulling something from his pocket. Speaking of which, you left this. Sarah's eyes widened as he handed her a folded map. She groaned. Great. Now you know my embarrassing secret, I'm utterly lost. He leaned in slightly. You're in luck. I happen to be an excellent tour guide. Sarah arched an eyebrow. Oh yeah? You do this often? Save lost tourists from wandering into ditches? You'd be surprised, he said with mock seriousness. Caldenia's ditches are very dangerous. Sarah couldn't help but laugh. There was something easy about talking to him, something fun. All right, mysterious local, if you're such a great tour guide, what's your name? He hesitated for the briefest moment before responding, Alex. Alex, she repeated, testing the name. Nice to meet you, Alex. I'm Sarah. Nice to meet you too, Sarah. He extended a hand, and as she shook it, she had no idea she was standing in front of Prince Alexander, heir to the throne of Caldenia. But she would soon find out. And when she did? Oh, it was going to be interesting. A stroll through magic. So, tell me, tour guide Alex, Sarah said, tucking her newly purchased scarf around her neck. Where does one begin exploring this fairy tale town? Alex smirked. Depends. Do you want the official tourist experience or the real Caldenia? Sarah narrowed her eyes playfully. I have a feeling that the official tour involves long lines and overpriced souvenirs. Exactly. Which is why I'm offering you the exclusive locals tour, Alex said, motioning for her to follow him down a side street. No lines, no crowds, just the best Caldenia has to offer. Sarah hesitated for only a second before falling into step beside him. The streets of Caldenia were even more enchanting up close. Twinkling lights draped across the rooftops, casting a golden glow over the snow-covered cobblestones. The scent of cinnamon and roasted almonds lingered in the air as vendors called out to passing shoppers, selling everything from handcrafted ornaments to steaming cups of mulled wine. Alex led her through a quieter alleyway, where a tiny bookshop nestled between two ivy-covered buildings. Its frosted windows were filled with old leather-bound novels and delicate trinkets. This, Alex said, pushing open the wooden door, is one of my favorite places in all of Caldenia. A bell chimed as they stepped inside. The scent of aged paper and spiced tea filled the air, and the walls were lined with bookshelves stretching to the ceiling. A sleepy-looking tabby cat dozed near the fireplace, barely lifting its head at their arrival. Sarah's eyes lit up as she ran her fingers along the spines of the books. Okay, I love this. Alex leaned against a nearby shelf, watching her with amusement. Are you a book person? Oh, absolutely, Sarah said, pulling out a well-worn copy of Pride and Prejudice. A good book is like an escape. No matter where you are, you can just, she paused, then laughed softly. You probably think that sounds ridiculous. Alex shook his head. Not at all. I think it makes perfect sense. There was something in his expression, something warm, almost admiring, that made Sarah's stomach flutter. Before she could dwell on it, he cleared his throat and gestured toward the door. Come on. There's more to see. Their next stop was a scenic overlook, where the entire town spread out before them like a postcard. The rooftops shimmered with freshly fallen snow, and beyond the town, rolling hills stretched toward the horizon, dusted white under the soft glow of the setting sun. Sarah exhaled in awe. Wow. Alex watched her reaction, a satisfied smile on his lips. Not bad, right? It's breathtaking, she admitted. I can't believe this place is real. Most people say that. She turned to him. You must love it here. Alex hesitated, looking out over the town. I do. But sometimes I wonder what it would be like to be somewhere else, just for a little while. Sarah studied him. You mean, like, traveling? Something like that, he said, but there was something guarded in his tone. Before she could press further, a gust of wind sent a flurry of snowflakes swirling around them. Sarah laughed as she wrapped her scarf tighter, and Alex instinctively reached up to brush a stray snowflake from her hair. For a second, their eyes met. The town, the cold, the rest of the world, it all faded. Sarah's heart skipped. Alex stepped back with a small, almost sheepish smile. You, had snow in your hair. Thanks, she murmured, feeling her cheeks warm despite the winter air. A comfortable silence settled between them before Alex spoke again. Come on. I know the perfect place to warm up. Minutes later, they were sitting inside a small cafe, hands wrapped around steaming mugs of hot cocoa. The windows fogged up from the warmth inside, creating a cozy little world just for them. Sarah took a sip and sighed. Okay, you win. This is officially the best hot chocolate I've ever had. Alex grinned. Told you. Locals tour never disappoints. She laughed, shaking her head. All right, I'll admit it, you're a pretty good guy. I'll take that as high praise, he said, raising his cup in a mock toast. As their laughter mingled with the soft hum of the cafe, Sarah realized something. She hadn't felt this light in a long time. And it had everything to do with Alex. A royal secret unveiled. The winter festival was a dazzling spectacle. Golden lights adorned the grand palace, casting a warm glow over the snow-covered courtyard. Music and laughter filled the crisp night air as elegantly dressed guests twirled across the marble dance floor. It was as if Sarah had stepped into a real-life fairy tale. Except, she wasn't the princess. She wasn't even sure she belonged here. Alex had invited her personally, insisting she experience the festival firsthand. After days of wandering Caldenia with him, sharing laughter over hot cocoa and quiet moments in hidden bookshops, Sarah had found herself drawn to him in a way she hadn't expected. He was charming, kind, and completely unlike anyone she had met before. But something had always felt off. Like there was a piece of him she couldn't quite see. And now, as she stood near the grand staircase, watching the elegantly dressed guests greet a figure at the top, her heart sank. It was Alex. Dressed in a regal navy suit adorned with intricate embroidery, he stood tall and composed, his usual easygoing demeanor replaced with something more formal, more restrained. A hush fell over the crowd as an announcer's voice echoed through the grand hall. Presenting His Royal Highness, Prince Alexander of Caldenia. Sarah's breath caught. Prince. Prince? Her mind reeled as the realization settled over her. The charming local who had playfully teased her in the marketplace, who had guided her through the town's hidden gems, who had shared quiet, thoughtful moments with her, wasn't just some regular guy. He was royalty. A weight pressed against her chest as she replayed every interaction, every moment they'd shared. Had he been playing some sort of game? Amusement flickered in the eyes of nearby guests as they murmured, stealing glances at her. She felt like a fool. Before she could think, she turned on her heel and hurried toward the exit, weaving through the crowd, her pulse pounding. Sarah, wait. Alex's voice cut through the noise, but she didn't stop. Not until she felt a warm hand gently catch her wrist. She turned, her heart hammering as she faced him. He was out of breath, his royal composure slipping as concern darkened his hazel eyes. "You're a prince," she said, her voice laced with disbelief. Alex exhaled. "I wanted to tell you, but you didn't," she interrupted. "You let me think you were just some regular guy showing me around." "I am just a guy," he insisted. "At least, I wanted to be. With you." Sarah shook her head, taking a step back. "But you're not, Alex. You're a prince. You have a whole kingdom watching you, and I'm just," she let out a hollow laugh. "I don't even know what I am anymore." His gaze softened. "You're Sarah. The woman who made me laugh when I needed it most. Who saw this town through fresh eyes and reminded me why I love it. You're not just anyone to me." She wanted to believe him. But reality crashed down too hard. "This," she gestured between them, "isn't real, is it? Because at the end of the day, you belong to this world. And I don't." Alex's jaw tensed. "Don't say that." Sarah swallowed the lump in her throat. "I should go." He didn't stop her this time. And as she walked away, her heart aching, she wondered if maybe fairy tales weren't meant for people like her after all. A royal warning. The palace corridors were colder than Sarah expected, despite the golden chandeliers and ornate tapestries lining the walls. The echoes of her footsteps on the polished marble floor felt deafening as she followed the royal attendant deeper into the palace. She hadn't expected to return here after discovering Alex's true identity. She had spent the last 2 days avoiding him, trying to process everything. But then, an unexpected summons had arrived. "Queen Isabella requests your presence at the palace." And now, here she was, standing in front of 2 towering wooden doors as the attendant gave her a curt nod. "You may enter." Sarah took a steadying breath before stepping inside. The room was grand yet intimidating. A roaring fireplace cast flickering shadows along the high ceiling, and tall windows overlooked the palace gardens dusted in snow. At the center of it all sat Queen Isabella. She was regal, poised, and impossibly elegant in her deep emerald gown. Her sharp, assessing gaze settled on Sarah as she gestured toward the chair across from her. "Please, sit." Sarah obeyed, smoothing her hands over her skirt as she tried to ignore the nervous pounding of her heart. The Queen studied her for a moment before speaking. "You must understand, Miss Peterson, that I do not make a habit of interfering in my son's personal affairs. But certain matters require my attention." Sarah's fingers curled in her lap. "I appreciate your honesty, Your Majesty." A faint smile touched the Queen's lips, though it didn't reach her eyes. "I imagine this world must feel overwhelming to you. A simple holiday in Caldenia, and suddenly you find yourself in the company of a prince." Sarah swallowed hard. "I didn't know who Alex was when I met him." "No, I expect you didn't," the Queen replied. "Which makes your presence here all the more concerning." The words stung, but Sarah kept her expression neutral. "I have no intention of disrupting Alex's life," she said carefully. The Queen tilted her head slightly. "And yet, that is precisely what is happening. My son has responsibilities, ones that do not allow for fleeting distractions." Sarah stiffened. "Is that what you think I am? A distraction?" The Queen's gaze was unwavering. "Tell me, Miss Peterson, can you picture yourself in this world? A life under constant scrutiny, your every move judged by the public, by foreign dignitaries, by history itself?" Sarah didn't answer. Because, in truth, she didn't know. The Queen's voice softened slightly, but her tone remained firm. It is not a question of whether Alex cares for you. It is a question of whether you are prepared for what loving him truly means. The weight of those words settled deep in Sarah's chest. Could she do this? Could she stand beside Alex when every force in his world was working against them? The Queen stood gracefully, signaling the conversation was over. I trust you will consider what I have said. Sarah nodded, unable to find her voice. As she left the room, a storm of doubt raged inside her. Maybe the Queen was right. Maybe love wasn't enough. Under the spotlight, Sarah had never felt more exposed in her life. She barely made it 2 steps outside the cozy cafe before a blinding flash went off, followed by another. Then came the voices, sharp, eager, relentless. Sarah, are you moving into the palace? How serious are you and Prince Alexander? Sources say the Queen disapproves. Are you being forced out? Her heart pounded as she gripped the strap of her bag and ducked her head, trying to push through the growing crowd. Paparazzi swarmed the narrow street, their cameras clicking like a relentless storm. Bystanders paused to watch, some whispering, others recording on their phones. Just a week ago, she had been a nobody in New York City, walking to work unnoticed. Now, she was Sarah Peterson, the woman caught in a royal whirlwind. She finally reached the car waiting for her at the curb. The palace had insisted on sending security after the first few articles had surfaced, but now she realized how necessary it was. The moment she slipped inside, the car doors shut, and the muffled sounds of the frenzy faded slightly. Are you all right, Miss Peterson? Asked Thomas, her assigned security detail. Sarah exhaled shakily, pressing her fingers to her temples. I don't know. He gave her a sympathetic nod before pulling away from the curb. The drive to the palace was short, but the damage had already been done. By the time she arrived, her face was everywhere. The palace staff moved swiftly, escorting her inside as more reporters gathered at the gates. Their voices echoed behind her even as the doors shut. She barely had time to breathe before Beth's voice rang out from the sitting room. Oh. My. God. Sarah turned to find her best friend holding up her phone, her eyes wide with disbelief. You're on every news site, Sarah. Every blog, every headline, the American commoner capturing Prince Alexander's heart. A royal scandal in the making. Look at this, can an outsider ever be queen? Sarah sank onto the couch, overwhelmed. This is insane. Beth sat beside her. Tell me about it. And these comments. She scrolled through, her face twisting. Some people are vicious. Sarah didn't need to see them to know. She had already caught glimpses, strangers picking apart her appearance, questioning her worth, speculating about her motives. She's not even that pretty. She's obviously after his money. What does he see in her? Her stomach twisted. Beth, she whispered, what if I can't do this? Beth's expression softened. Sarah. Before she could respond, another voice entered the room. You can do this. Sarah looked up to see Alex standing in the doorway, his jaw tense, his eyes filled with concern. She swallowed. Alex, this is too much. He crossed the room, taking her hands in his. I know. And I hate that you have to go through this. But it's not going to stop, is it? She said, her voice barely above a whisper. This is my life now. Cameras in my face, people picking me apart, the queen looking at me like I don't belong. Hey. Alex gently cupped her face, forcing her to meet his gaze. You do belong. With me. She wanted to believe him. She did. But as the headlines kept flashing in her mind, doubt crept in. And for the first time, she wondered if love was enough to survive the weight of the world watching. A love worth fighting for. The grand hall of the palace was packed with journalists, flashing cameras, and murmuring spectators. The royal family rarely addressed personal matters in public, but today was different. Today, Prince Alexander was about to make a statement that would shake the very foundation of Caldenia's traditions. Sarah stood in the shadows of the grand staircase, her hands clenched tightly at her sides. Beth was beside her, whispering, "Whatever happens, you've already won his heart." But Sarah wasn't sure that was enough, not when the weight of an entire kingdom hung between them. Then, Alex stepped forward onto the platform, his face calm but determined. He stood tall in his formal attire, the royal crest glinting under the grand chandelier's light. The room fell silent. "I know why you're all here," he began, his voice steady. "For weeks, the media has speculated about my relationship with Sarah Peterson. You have questioned her intentions, her background, her worthiness. Some have even gone so far as to call her a distraction, an inconvenience to the crown." His gaze swept the room, unwavering. "But let me be clear, Sarah is none of those things. She is not a threat to this kingdom. She is not a scandal. She is the woman I love." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Journalists scrambled to take notes, cameras flashed wildly, but Alex pressed on. "I have spent my life bound by duty, by expectations, by traditions that dictate whom I should love, how I should lead, and what is acceptable for a future king. But if I am to be a ruler, let it be on my own terms. Let it be with honesty, with courage, with the conviction to stand for what I believe in." His voice grew stronger, filled with passion. "I love Sarah not because she comes from a noble family, not because she was chosen by tradition, but because she challenges me, inspires me, and sees me for who I truly am, not just a prince, but a man." Sarah felt her breath hitch, emotions threatening to overwhelm her. In a time when the world is changing, should love not change with it? Should we not embrace the possibility that love, real love, transcends titles and bloodlines? Alex turned his gaze directly to the cameras, addressing the people beyond the palace walls. "Caldenia, I ask you, what kind of king do you want? One who bends to outdated customs? Or one who leads with his heart?" Silence. Then, a single clap. Another. And suddenly, the room erupted into applause. Sarah felt Beth squeeze her arm, whispering, "He just won them over." Reporters shouted questions, but Alex raised a hand, silencing them. "My choice is clear. And if there are consequences to my love for Sarah, then I will face them. Because no crown, no tradition, and no title will ever make me turn my back on the woman who holds my heart." The moment the press conference ended, Alex turned towards Sarah, striding across the room without hesitation. Before she could say a word, he pulled her into his arms, whispering, "No more hiding. No more doubt." And as the kingdom watched, Sarah realized, he had just risked everything for her. And she would never doubt his love again. A promise in the snow. The cold winter air nipped at Sarah's skin as she wandered through the snow-covered palace gardens. The world felt still, save for the soft crunch of her boots against the frozen ground. The garden was quieter than usual, no cameras, no whispers, just the peaceful hush of the night. She wrapped her arms tighter around herself, wishing for a moment of clarity. The events of the past few weeks had left her breathless. The media frenzy had only escalated after Alex's declaration, and the royal court scrutiny was more intense than ever. She had tried to stay strong, but the pressure had mounted, and doubt had crept in once more. She paused in front of the fountain, the soft glow of nearby lights casting shadows across the snow. In the distance, the sound of footsteps approached, steady and familiar. Sarah turned, her heart fluttering despite herself. Alex. His dark coat blended with the night, his eyes fixed on her with a look she knew all too well, a mixture of determination and love. Without a word, he closed the distance between them, his presence comforting, unwavering. "I've been looking for you," he said softly, his breath visible in the frigid air. Sarah met his gaze, her chest tightening. "I didn't know where else to go." Alex reached out, gently taking her hands in his. "You don't need to go anywhere, Sarah. Not when you're with me." Her heart ached at the simplicity of his words, yet the weight of everything they had faced was impossible to ignore. "I don't know if I can live this life, Alex. The pressure, the expectations, your mother, the media, it's all too much." He nodded, his thumb brushing over her knuckles. "I know. I've never wanted to burden you with any of this. I should have been more patient, should have given you the time and space to process everything. But I was so afraid of losing you that I rushed." Sarah's throat tightened. I don't belong in your world. I'm not prepared for this kind of life." "You don't have to be," Alex said, stepping closer. "We'll figure it out together. You don't have to fit into some mold or live by other people's expectations. Just be yourself, with me." Tears welled in Sarah's eyes, the truth of his words cutting through the fear that had taken root in her heart. "With me." That was all she had ever wanted to hear. "I don't want to lose you," she whispered, her voice trembling. He lowered to one knee in the snow, his hands gently holding hers as he looked up at her. "Sarah Peterson, I love you more than anything in this world. You've shown me what real love is, love that isn't bound by tradition, by title, or by anything other than the heart. I want to spend the rest of my life proving that to you. Will you marry me?" Tears streamed down Sarah's face as she gazed at the man who had not only captured her heart but had shown her a love that transcended all the barriers she had feared. Her chest swelled with emotion, and a single word broke free. "Yes." Alex stood, his eyes shining with joy, and in that moment, the world seemed to fall away. She was no longer the woman lost in the shadows of royal expectations. She was the woman Alex had chosen, and nothing else mattered. He pulled her into his arms, holding her tightly, his lips finding hers in a kiss that was soft but full of promise. Their kiss was a pledge, of love, of overcoming, of building a life together, no matter the obstacles ahead. And as the snow fell gently around them, Sarah knew that no matter what the future held, she and Alex, a new beginning. The grand hall was bathed in golden light, its high ceilings adorned with intricate carvings that seemed to whisper stories of centuries past. The air was filled with a sense of history and anticipation, but all Sarah could focus on was the man standing before her. Alex. Dressed in the royal regalia, the weight of his crown only seemed to amplify the strength in his posture. But it wasn't the glittering jewels or the royal cloak that held her attention, it was the warmth in his eyes as they met hers, a silent promise between them. They had come so far together, their love tested by challenges, doubts, and the weight of royal expectations. Today, it all led to this moment. As the crowd in the palace's grand hall rose to their feet, a wave of admiration and respect rippled through the air. Alex, now King Alexander of Caldenia, stood tall, his heart steady and resolute. His mother, Queen Isabella, stood to his side, her regal presence a reminder of the responsibilities he was about to shoulder. Yet it was Sarah, standing beside him, who had become his anchor. The woman who had loved him when the world had questioned them both. Sarah felt the weight of the moment settle in her chest as the coronation ceremony continued. The crown was placed upon Alex's head, and for a fleeting second, she could see the hesitation in his eyes, a reminder of the many burdens he now carried. But then, he glanced at her, and his resolve strengthened. Her heart swelled with pride as the ceremony concluded, the crowd's cheers filling the hall. Alex's coronation was not just the beginning of a new reign, it was the beginning of their life together, one built on trust, on love, and on the unwavering belief that they could conquer anything as long as they stood united. As the formalities ended, Alex turned to Sarah, his hand gently reaching for hers. She squeezed it tightly, feeling the connection they shared in every beat of her heart. "You did it," Sarah whispered, a proud smile tugging at her lips. Alex's eyes softened, and he pulled her closer, brushing a kiss to her forehead. "We did it." Together, they made their way to the balcony, where the people of Caldenia had gathered to witness the new king's first appearance. The cheers from the crowd were deafening, but all Sarah could hear was the sound of her own heartbeat, steady and sure. As Alex raised his hand to greet his people, she stood proudly beside him, her heart swelling with love and confidence. She had once feared that she wouldn't belong, that her love for Alex would never fit within the confines of royal expectations. But now, as she stood by his side, she realized that this was her place. This was where she was meant to be. Not as a commoner, not as an outsider, but as the woman who had chosen to walk beside him, hand in hand, through every trial and triumph. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over the kingdom of Caldenia, Sarah knew that their love, their journey, had only just begun. Together, they would face whatever came next, side by side.
The Stories book is a captivating collection of tales that traverse diverse genres and emotions, spanning the realms of fantasy, science fiction, romance, and mystery. Each narrative is a journey into the unexpected, weaving intricate plots and compelling characters. With a skillful blend of vivid imagery and thought-provoking themes, this anthology invites readers to explore the depths of imagination and discover the universal threads that connect us all. From heartwarming moments to spine. We hope you enjoyed these captivating video stories. Be sure to subscribe to our channel for more heartwarming content like this. Thanks for watching, and keep spreading the video story.